Hello, welcome back. I am Brita Wallace, family and parent educator with Wallace Family Ministry. Welcome to my channel. We are on day 18 of the Love Dare for Parents. So this is super exciting, guys. We are almost halfway done with our study, which is really awesome. I think that this is such a amazing blueprint for parenting. Honestly, like, I run a ministry that teaches parenting and teaches families how to thrive. But I just think that this is so, like, you could literally get this book and your family would thrive. Like, your relationship with your kids would thrive because, oh my goodness, this has such good principles in it. And every day I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so important. But every day is important that we learn how to love our kids well. So I thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. Today is day 18, and today we talk about love models the way, okay? So we always start with a verse, and our verse today is marriage is to be held in honor among all. Hebrews 13:4. So the Bible contains many examples of people who sought help from God and then received a wise, though unexpected answer, right? So Naaman, an army chief, was angry after being told by the prophet Elijah to go wash himself in the Jordan River if he wanted a cure for his leprosy. That was not what he expected, okay? A materialistic young ruler walked away frustrated after Jesus said to sell all that you possess and distribute it to the poor and come and follow me. That was not the answer that he expected, right? So God knows we will not always understand or like his solutions to our situations, all right? But when we come to him with a desire to love our children more fully, don't be surprised if one of his most important requests seems unexpected. And this could be it, all right? To love and respect your spouse more fully as well, okay? This is the first point that I want you to get. Children stand and grow on the foundation of their parents' relationship. So the more you show genuine love and respect for your mate or even your ex, okay, the stronger and more loved your children will feel. That's very, very important. Love is not merely heard or taught. It is seen and caught. That's the second point that I want you to get. Love is not merely heard and taught. It is seen and caught. Okay, that means it's modeled. All right, so marriage is one of God's primary ways of teaching us how to love another selfish sinner unconditionally. This is the best environment in which children should ideally grow. That's not to say that if you have if you're divorced or if you have a split home and your family, your children are growing up in a split home does not, and you have not gotten along with your ex, does not mean that you can't start to show love and respect to your ex right now, because that is your child's father. And I get it. Like, yeah, there's a reason you divorced him. There's a reason why you guys aren't together. There's a reason why, maybe they're terrible. Maybe they've done terrible things, but they're still your children's parent. And if they're having a relationship with your child, then we should be respecting and showing them love as well. That doesn't mean that we have to be with them. I mean, God values marriage. He doesn't want to see your marriage fall apart. He also understands that there's things that happen, and there's no judgment here for me especially. But God, that's between you and God and your ex or whatever situation that is. God still loves you, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to still be showing respect and love towards that parent in front of our children especially, right? Because the thing is that we tend to get bitter, we tend to get hurt, and we tend to show that to our kids. And some of us can pawn our children and use them as pawns in between houses and to get what we want, and that is not okay. Children know that, they feel it, and that creates a lot of inner turmoil and identity issues and all sorts of things inside a child, and they feel unloved when their parents are operating in that fashion. So we have to really make sure that we're guarding our children from that. If we're from a broken home, and I don't have a broken home, but I came from a broken home, so I can say that. I can say that we have to guard our children from things that happen between us as adults, right? And we still have to show respect and love. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. It's not always the easiest thing to do if you're married, because we get upset with our spouses and stuff. And if our children do see that, it's important that we talk to them about it and not ignore it, and to explain to them that it had nothing to do with them. If they see a fight or something, I mean, we're not perfect. My kids have seen Chris and I get in arguments. We really, really work hard at not showing them that anymore. And we don't get in arguments too much these days. Every once in a while, we get in a little tiff, and then we are fine and we make up. But it's important that our kids see that. And it's important that our kids are being told, like, hey, this had nothing to do with you. Mommy and daddy are fine. You know, we just had a disagreement and we love each other. And, you know, we shouldn't have said something in front of you if something was said, you know, inappropriately. And we shouldn't have talked about this in front of you if it wasn't appropriate. You know, our kids do need to see that we can have a disagreement, and we're going to be okay as well. But there are things that are a little more serious and, you know, are a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Fragile, because heated. They can get more heated and fragile, and we don't want to expose our children to those things. You know, having a little bit of a disagreement or a tiff, or, you know, and then showing our children that we still love each other is really, really important. But we want to leave that, you know, deeper stuff in private. And sometimes it comes out, like I said, but we want to talk to our children about that. We don't want to ignore it and just say, oh, they'll forget it, because they won't. And sometimes they think that it has to do with them. Just how kids are. That's how they think, and they feel less loved. And we don't realize that as parents. That's not the thought that we have. We don't want to think that, but it's true. That's what happens. So any romance can turn sour if love is not leading the way, okay? Bickering and bitterness can become as common as the nightly setting sun, right? And what do our kids feel and learn when this happens? This is what they feel and they learn. And I want you to know this. And it's not just the book. I am a product of this, okay? Insecurity, anxiety, anger. I can tell you, growing up, I felt all of those things. Do I blame my parents? No, I don't. They were doing the best they could with what they were going through themselves, okay? And they didn't know that that was happening to me, or, you know, I can tell you my sisters in some ways maybe felt some of these things, or things that I've observed that I can say, oh yeah, you know, sometimes they felt this stuff. I can only speak for myself to say that I was a product of this. You know, I was a product of a broken home and parents who were angry with each other and hurt. So it's hard to be a kid in that situation, and it's hard to be a parent in that situation. But as parents, we have this information now where we have to do better, right? We don't want to expose our children to this when we're bickering and we're showing them bitterness, because, you know, all the time, because that's what happens. This is what happens inside: insecurity, anxiety, and anger. And I want you to understand that. That's not just, don't take it. You know, if you don't want to take the author's word for it, if you're like, that's not happening to my kid, I was that kid. It was happening to me, and it is happening to your children, because that's how we are developmentally designed. This is where our brains go, right? Like this is how we process these things. We become insecure, we become anxious, we become angry because we don't understand it. That's why I said it's important that if you are exposing your kids to this stuff, or if you have, or even if it is infrequent, like I said, that we're still talking to them about that. Hey, you know, mommy and daddy shouldn't have been discussing this around you. We're fine. And it's important that we discuss it together. That even makes it stronger than one parent just coming and saying that. They could be thinking, well, I don't know, is daddy okay, or is mommy okay? but when you're coming together as a unit and saying, you know, we shouldn't have discussed this around you. This had nothing to do with you. You know, this is something mommy and daddy should have discussed in private, but these are some things that you heard. Do you have any questions? Do you have anything that you want to say? Or reiterating something that was said, you know, and obviously this is true to your own situation, so I can't speak into that every situation specifically, but saying, you know, if there was something said where you need to say like, okay, this is what was said and I want to explain this to you, and I want to explain, you know, and then you have to maybe do some damage control, and sometimes we have to do that as parents, but a lot of times as parents we think, oh, they're not affected by it, or yeah, it doesn't really matter, we're just going to ignore it and they'll forget it, they'll get over it and it won't affect them. But that's absolutely 100% false, and we're doing a disservice to ourselves, to our family, and to our kids when we're ignoring things that need to be addressed. And it's not, for all of us, it's not always easy and comfortable, right, to have conversations, to have tough conversations. But I've said many, many times, and you'll hear me say this over and over again in my ministry, is that comfortability and growth do not belong together. If we're growing, we're not comfortable. I will tell you something right now, a little off topic for a moment, after I check the time. I am very, very outgoing, okay? I will talk to people. I wasn't always like that. I was shy as a kid, but I've grown to be outgoing, and it depends on the situation and the feeling. I can pick up on people's energies. So if I feel like it is a good energy mesh, I guess, like if our energies mesh well, or I can have a conversation with somebody, I will. I'm very outgoing. I'll talk to them. I'll, you know, just mingle and make small talk with somebody. I don't make a lot of small talk with people, though. I'm not really good at that. I'm really good at deep conversations, honestly, and somehow I know when somebody is in that mindset. Not that I mean, I make small talk in the grocery store and stuff, like, oh, hey, to the cashier or whatever. Now I'm rambling, I'm sorry. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, I'm very outgoing and I can talk to people. I don't like people watching me do things. So I waitress and bartended for years, okay? And what happens is you have to follow around the waitress or the bartender, and they show you how to do things. And then on the last day of training, and I actually ran a training department at Chili's for quite a bit, and I scheduled people to do this. This is how we train people. So, but I hated it. I hated that last day because they'd have to follow you around it. They'd have to watch you do things. And that makes me nervous. That actually makes me more prone to making mistakes. And for such a long time in my life, I was this perfectionist that hated making mistakes because I always felt like I was going to disappoint people, because I did for so many years in my life. That I don't like to watch, you know, I don't want like watching people. I don't like people, watching me do things. So when I got married, when Chris and I decided to get married, I did not want a bunch of people there. I did not want a big thing. I'll have a party. Yeah, but even when we danced, and I love dancing, but even when we danced our first dance, I was like, invite people to dance with us. Like, this is weird to me. This feels awkward. I don't like that. Okay, so as you can probably think right now, like, well, you are posting videos and you teach online for the world to see, right? And I make mistakes all the time. It's like, I probably made 10 mistakes in talking. I talk fast sometimes I ramble. My goodness, I have gotten so much better at this than when I first started. And as I continue, I'm going to get better at it. But this is the biggest uncomfortable thing in my life, okay, is to do videos, is for somebody to be watching me do something, okay? If there was like somebody sitting here on the couches that are surrounding me on the other side, you can't see the other side of the space that I'm in, I wouldn't be doing this right now, because that would be like super uncomfortable for me. I've grown somewhat in that way, so maybe it would depend on the person or the people who were there, but I would start like reading backwards. I would start speaking unclearly, and I do that enough on my own, right? So I just hate people watching me do things. being on, and then I ran a children's ministry, and sometimes I'd have to be on stage. Luckily, not that often, but that made me really uncomfortable. And I knew all those people. They were all the volunteers in our church. I spent every weekend with them and more, you know. And they were a lot of them were my friends. They loved me. And I was just like, oh, this is so super uncomfortable. I didn't like it. I don't like this. I love teaching, though. I love it. And that's what God's called me to do. But I'm just saying that to just tell you that comfortability and growth are not even supposed to be in the same category. They're not. When we need to grow in an area, it's uncomfortable. So sometimes we have to have uncomfortable conversations with our children and with the people that we love, and with our family members, or to step out and model certain behaviors that seem foreign and uncomfortable to us, because they are, and because we need to grow in that area. Okay? But just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's not right. If you're doing something that is good and it's uncomfortable, it's a growth spot for you. And just keep pushing into it. Don't run from it. Let yourself grow. There is great wisdom that you're going to find there. There's great discernment that you're going to find there. You're going to grow as a person. And just one of the things that I had said in one of my videos, and I don't remember if it was in this series of parenting or in just the regular Love Dare for marriages, but I had to, one of the assignments that I had to do for school was on learning about wisdom. And I had to go through all of I had to send scenarios to 10 different people, and they had to respond to them. And then I had to, based off of what I learned in the class and about wisdom, grade them on their level of wisdom. And what I learned in that class is not everybody grows in wisdom. We always think wisdom comes with age. That's not true. There are old people who are not wise. There are old people who are so set in this one-sided and just closed-minded perspective, and they haven't grown in their lives. They refuse to grow because they're not open. They're not looking to grow. They don't want to be uncomfortable. So I encourage you, if you have to have these uncomfortable conversations with your kids, it's going to help grow your relationship. Okay? If you have to have uncomfortable situations with a family member or your spouse, well, it's going to help you grow. Okay? And oftentimes it's going to help grow your relationship with them. So, I mean, sometimes it might create some animosity at first, but I think it's also on the approach. And I think we have to realize that too. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth and they get upset about that, but prepare your heart. Ask God to prepare their hearts and prepare yours before you have these conversations, because there's wisdom there, and ask Him to give you discernment before you have these difficult conversations, okay? So, getting back to our study, off the side note for a minute, is, how our children interpret and grasp the meaning of love when their parents, or how do they interpret and grasp the meaning of love when their parents are constantly fighting? They struggle to receive it within the sea of relational dysfunction. So your kids will grow up to have dysfunctional relationships. I mean, that is just, that is a fact. That is what happens when they just only know how to interpret and grasp the meaning of love with parents who are always fighting, okay? Then they grow up and they have dysfunctional relationships. That is the reality of it. So we have to ask ourselves if that's how we want to teach our children, right? We have to model the way. So your interaction with your child's other parent may be amazing, mediocre, or a minefield, but it's still the primary example affecting your children's lives, okay? So you may have gone through a painful divorce, and opportunities still present themselves to fuss over the phone or to complain to the children about their absent father or irritable mother. But what kind of confusion does this set up in a child's heart? Hearing words of love from each parent in their own ears, yet seeing them act unloving and hostile towards each other. Okay, that's a hard pill for some of us to swallow, and I get that. Regardless of your current marital standing, Jesus commands you to love your child's other parent, whether they're your close friend, distant neighbor, or arch enemy. Love is not optional in God's relational economy. All right? Though love does not always equal trust or intimacy in every dynamic, and this is the next point that I want you to get, though love does not equal trust and intimacy in every dynamic, it should still inspire daily, consistent examples of patience and kindness, no matter what the other has done in the past. Okay? Being faithful, warm, understanding, and cooperative with your wife or husband may not always be easy, or your ex, but it will cash out in your children's heart, as security, peace, strength, and greater self-acceptance. Okay? That is so crucial to the well-being of our children. All right? So obviously you cannot completely control the climate in your house. You yourself may be working hard for unity, yet still be dealt dysfunction in return. But loving your kids means doing your part to cool things down, okay? To swallow your pride, to ask forgiveness for your own faults, right? To listen, to affirm, to open your eyes and see how much of what is being said by your spouse or ex may be more true than you're willing to admit. Any loving changes you can make will not only look better on you, but they're likely to show up as more welcoming smiles and more pleasant meal times with your whole family. And it may not fix everything, but it could get your ship moving in the right direction, all right? So, fathers, the greater responsibility for leading the way begins with you. If you're a father listening, this is so true. How easy it can be to feel disrespected and then take out your frustrated ego on your wife and belittle her in front of your kids. Not only is this dishonorable, foolish, and unloving, but your children will often project your disapproval of their beloved mother onto themselves, receiving it as a cloaked dissatisfaction with them too. And they can treat their mother like that as well. Both parents should model what healthy relationships look like for their children. Speaking negatively and turning a child's heart against the other parent is not love, okay? And it's not a good way to love our kids. Your words and attitudes should cause them to respect the other parent more and not less, okay? We should make the honor thy parents command something that's easier for our children to do and not harder, all right? It is okay to respectfully disagree about behind closed doors, but a father and mother should always be a united front and in total agreement when they are in front of their children. That is the next point that I want you to get. Why? Because you are defining the concept of marriage, unity, communication, and reconciliation in their growing minds. You are defining those concepts, okay? Of marriage, unity, communication, and reconciliation in their growing minds. They need to see you do those things. Those definitions of those concepts come from your example. They will naturally tend to follow your example, whether it is one of love or bitterness. And they will tend to pass your example on to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And this is how we get into why I created Wallace Family Ministry in the first place, breaking generational chains in the family and parenting of things that have just planted unhealthy seeds, right? And have grown bitterness in families and is not good. So really wanting to teach families how to thrive. And this, just listen to that, whether it's one of love or bitterness, we pass that down to generation and generation and generation. We're either passing down love and acceptance and respect, or we're passing down bitterness and anger and unacceptance and just all of those things that come in that category, negativity. And this is for generations and generations to come. So what type of legacy are you looking to leave behind? One of love or one of bitterness, right? So no matter what your spouse or ex-spouse has done, your forgiveness can disarm much of the damage and keep it from raining down on your children's heads and into their hearts, okay? And regardless of what you've done, you can determine to change and model kindness today. Be patient if things take longer to resolve than you think they should. but as best as you can and with God's help, prayerfully raise your respect and love level for the other parent. You will be doing one of the most loving things for your children. All right, so today's dare is ask God to give you a greater love and respect for your spouse or for your child's other parent. Share something encouraging and positive today about them to your children, all right? And if you've been running them down around your kids, ask your children to forgive you. Tell them that you were wrong, and that's not appropriate. Don't use your children as pawns, okay? And some of you are going to be mad at me for teaching this today. Some of you are going to be mad at me for my input on this because it's something that you've done, or it's something that you're doing, or it's something that you don't want to accept that has happened in your lives, and that's conviction. And if that's what you're feeling, then I encourage you to ask yourself why. You can't be mad at me. You can't shoot the messenger, right? Well, you can, but my heart gets convicted from these studies too, and from certain things, okay? Like there's days where I'm like, man, I can let it bring me down, or I can say, no, I'm going to grow in this area. And that's the point of doing this study, right? Is to grow, to be better people, to be better parents, no matter if we think we're the best parent in the world or the worst. Well, there's always room for growth, and growth isn't comfortable, but it's worth it. It's so worth it, and it brings us to a deeper, greater, wiser place, and it is a great, wise decision for you to make. So I encourage you to do this dare well today, okay? So I love you guys. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate my faithful followers, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, make sure you do. Make sure you like me, and make sure you share me with your friends, because you never know how much somebody might need a message today, or needs the encouragement, and just really needs to have a community of people who are going to love and support them and help them to go on this journey together. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. Take care, and God bless. I'll see you tomorrow for day 19 of the Love Dare. Yay! Bye, guys.